Hey guys, here we are back for some Modern today. This is John Mayer recording for Pure MTGO Traders, and we're playing some more Modern. As many of you know, I'm a huge fan of Modern, and I'm a huge fan of playing this deck in Modern. Basically this is just, pretty standard blue-white control. We got a little gift when Jace the Mind Sculptor was unbanned, and this is the list that I've been playing a good amount of, and I've been doing quite a lot of winning with, this is a solid list. I think that this is a pretty good starting point moving forward. There's a couple of little tweaks here and there. A couple of the numbers are kind of funky, like the one Wrath, and like the one Logic Knot. But aside from that, I think that everything else is pretty good. So anyways, a mana base is pretty straightforward. You've got tons of basics. You've got a Mystic Gate for filtering, because you want to hit, double white, triple blue, double white, etc., so on and so forth. Tons of basics. Very painless mana base with all your basics, and you've got Flooded Strands, and the addition of the Polluted Delta is obviously just to have another shuffle effect for Jace the Mind Sculptor's Brainstorm. And then from there, you've got 4 Field of Ruin. This card is insane. It pairs very, very well with Spreading Seas to shut off your opponent's mana base. Like you're kind of like playing like a prison deck, because you want to buy time until you get to the late game when you can just take control with gain a bunch of life, draw a bunch of cards with Sphinx Revelation, start beating down with Gideon, Jura, Gideon of the Trials, start taking up Jace the Mind Sculptor, wipe up everything with Supreme Verdict, counter all their spells, stuff like that. So if you can get to that point, you can shut them off of a color, you shut off man lands. It's obviously insane against Tron, and stuff like that. Then you've got 4 Fielded Ruins to kind of complement that, so you can always, you've got 8 basics, so you can always pretty much guarantee that you're going to be able to get a target with that. And the reason why Field is so good, as opposed to something like Ghost Quarter or Tectonic Edge, is because you don't lose a land. So Blue-White Control used to play in the sense that it was basically like Tectonic Edge or Ghost Quarter were like spell lands, and they often would be paired with the Crucible of Worlds. You can get your lands back and stuff like that, and just use that as an angle for attack, and basically use Tectonic Edge as like a path to exile, if you will, or like a Stone Rain against like a Raging Ravine or whatever, but now with Field of Ruin, it's more of just a pay to, in a sense, quote unquote, because the land comes in untapped, which is cool. And a lot of decks in Modern just don't play many basics at all, so sometimes it's just straight up, pay to wasteland you. So it's pretty cool. Moving along, 4 Flood Strands, pretty straightforward. Hallowed Fountains and a Mystic Gate, those are just your non-basics. Just because you want to have access to duels if you need them, and you've got Colonnades as duels also. Then there's 1 Ghost Quarter in here, just as like the 5th spell land, if you will. Now, Field of Ruin is not great like against Tron on the draw, because like you need 3 mana to activate this. Well, 3 total mana, 2 lands plus field. So like if Tron's on the play, they can just go Tron land, map, Tron land, sack map, get the 3rd Tron land, and then just Karn you, before you can even play your Field of Ruin. That's why Spreading Seas helps, and obviously you have counter magic, but having access to a Ghost Quarter helps with that a little bit, and it also helps post board, but we'll get to that later. Then you've got pretty standard everything else in the deck here. You've got Path and Serum Visions on 1. Serum is just like a tap out card. You're just looking to dig to what you need to get. Basically, that's it. Path is just most efficient removal spell that you can have in a blue-white deck. 2 Wall of Omens, great for protecting your planeswalkers like Gideon, Jace, and so on. Also pretty good at blocking Bloodbraid Elf. And then you have 2 Mana Leaks, just as your counter suite, and a Negate. Negate is really great. I've been pushing towards 2 main deck Negates for a long time. My ideology is that you're playing a control deck. I mean, you've got 4 Path, you've got 2 Sphere, Gideons, Verdicts, Jura. So like, the only thing that Negate doesn't counter is creatures, and you don't really care a ton about creatures because you just kill them all. But I still think that Leak is a necessary evil. But Negate is still just a fantastic card in the main deck. There's almost never going to be a deck that you can't hit targets with. The only deck that it's really not great against is like something like Elves, but they play usually Chord and Collected Company. And some of them play like crap like Path and like Lead the Stampede, stuff like that. So I mean, you have targets in there, but the only real one is like Humans, where you can pretty much only negate Aether Vial. But the great thing about now in this format is that you can play pretty much any card. Like if you have a negate and you're against Humans, you're just like, all right, well, I'll just play Jace, brainstorm it away, and then get 3 fresh cards and tuck this negate back and then shuffle it away. So that helps a lot. Or you also have Search for Azcanta as well to just kind of like filter through that. Search is pretty straightforward as well. It's been seeing a lot of play lately. I never was really on this card until I started playing it, because I know like if you're in the late game and you like really need a spell, it's a miserable top deck because like the rest of the deck like cantrips and stuff. But it's just insane. You basically get to look at the top card of your deck. So you scry one, and then you just dump it if it's bad. It enables really cool combos with like Jace the Mind Sculptor, because you can like brainstorm bad crap to the top, and if you don't have a shuffle effect, or like in a couple of scenarios, like if you're at 1 life and you like can't afford to crack a fetch, and you just don't have field, or like whatever, you can just brainstorm and then just dump it, just dump the cards with Azcanta, and then once it flips, it's insane. I mean, you just basically pay for you can like leave up Cryptic Command, leave up Snapcaster Mage, whatever. And then, just dig for whatever you need. And it hits pretty much everything in the entire deck except for Snapcaster Mages. So, like, just go wild. Just grab whatever you need, pretty much. Yeah. So, 2 Snapcaster Mages, because we don't have a ton of targets for it. The most common thing that I've been doing with Snapcaster Mages, really, in this format is, with 6 mana and a Cryptic Command in the graveyard, I just go Snap Cryptic, counter your spell, or do whatever I need to do, and then bounce my Snapcaster Mage, just to get like that extra value and everything like that. So that works out really well. Then 2 Getting into the Trials, just really solid card. It's a good beater, and again, it's a good clock against some decks when you need to have a clock. Locks down some things and makes them overextend into Wrath. It's still good. Then Sphere, these are just your catch-all removal spells. Hit Planeswalkers, hit multiple copies of whatever, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Then moving on to the 4-drop slot, I think 2 Jace is correct. You don't really want to be overloading on Jace. Blue-White Control was performing well before Jace was unbanned. So, I mean, like, we're just trying to slot him in. There's a lot of people who want to just, like, jam 4 Jace the Mind Sculptors, but I've found that a lot of times, I mean, sometimes Jace is just like a 4-mana draw 3, or like a 4-mana unsummon, just to like buy you some time. And you never want to get clunked with like a ton of these in your hand. I was on 3 for the longest time, but the meta is extremely aggressive. Right now there's a ton of just like decks where Jace is not the best against. There's a ton of Bird, there's a ton of Ponza, there's a ton of like Affinity, which is shocking considering, Kolaghan's Command and Jund and yada yada. But stuff like that. So you could cut a Cryptic Command for Jace, but I think that having the Jaces are just not really necessary. So 3 Cryptic Command card is insane. Really does whatever you need it to do. It's basically your answer to everything in the format. 3 Wrath effects. I like to have this split just against humans, like Meddling Mage, and the Wrath of God has actually been kind of relevant. Elves is relatively popular, and Jund decks and decks to fight, blue decks, because Jace was unbanned, are playing Thrun, so Wrath is really great there. There is an argument to be made that this should be a Settle the Wreckage instead of a Wrath, and then bring in the Wrath again. So, I mean, like, that's a possibility. Actually, this is kind of funny. I'm going to do that right now. I'm actually just going to swap this. I'm just going to try this, just for the video's sake. So we're going to put Settle the Wreckage in instead of Wrath. And Settle does the same thing as Wrath does, pretty much. It allows you to, like, leave up Cryptic Command, and then if they attack, like, then you just, whatever. So, Settle is really a great trick. If they attack with everything, you just blow them out. If they attack with not enough, then you either just take the damage and counter their pre-combat or their post-combat spell. Or like if they don't attack with enough, and you have a Snapcaster Mage and a Path, then you can like just like Snap Path instead and like block. So I mean, it's really great. I like it. I liked it in the sideboard, but I found that it might be better in the main deck. So I'm gonna try it in the main deck actually, just for the sake of this video. Might not come up that often since it's only on 1-of, but we'll see. Alternatively, there are like reasons to not play it, like if your opponent has things with like activated abilities that you want to play around and stuff like that you want to just kill with the Supreme Verdict. You know, like if they have like you know, a Primeval Titan, you don't want them to attack with it, or if they have like an Ulamog, you know, well, Ulamog doesn't matter because it's indestructible, but you get the point. Just things that you want to kill, like Grim Lavamancer, let's say, whatever they're not attacking with, you don't want to, like, you want to be able to kill it. So we'll see if that comes up as much as just being able to like trick them. And then to round out the rest of the deck, got a Gideon Jura, just aggro hoser, and it's a huge clock. You get both Gideons on the board. This was originally cut for a little bit, but it's really good against aggro, and it's also very good against burn, which is very popular right now. With the Gideon emblem. So if you get into the Trials emblem, that's already gaining you like 3 life because they have to kill this Gideon then. And then you play Gideon Jura and take it up to 8, and that's gaining life, you know, and then they have to expend a bunch of resources on, you know, Gideon Jura to get it out. And then against other decks too, once you've like established control, you can just verdict the whole board away kind of thing. Have Gideons, both of them in play, and just like, you know, attack for 10, you know, attack for 4, attack for 6, and then just finish him off that way. Just a 2-turn clock. It's really quick for closing out games. He's just a huge beat stick. You just gotta be careful because he's not indestructible, this one. But kills tap creatures and stuff like that too, so it's good protection against stuff like Reality Smasher and whatever else. And then we have 1 Logic Knot, just as an extra counter spell. I haven't been super impressed with Logic Knot, but it's not the worst. You know, being able to like double your entire graveyard and you know, counter something big that Mana Leak normally wouldn't be able to counter is kind of important. And then you have obviously the Sphinx's Revelation as just like the last card here to kind of go nuts and, you know, draw a bunch of cards, gain some life, and bury your opponent in card advantage. So that's the main deck. It's been working out pretty well so far. Let's move on to the sideboard real quick. Alright, so we get some good stuff in the board. So starting off, we have Blessed Alliance, and Blessed Alliance comes in against a lot of different things. Obviously, it comes in against anything aggressive because sack a guy and or gain 4 is really good. You know, but it's also really great against like control, because they're going to be like wanting to try to attack you with like getting into the Trials or like their manlands. I mean, your manlands are pretty much covered because you have, you know, 5 kill spells and then Seize for manlands, so that's not usually a problem. But in the control mirror, you really don't want to be pathing their Gideons or their Snapcaster Mages and stuff like that, because why would you want to give them an extra land? Sometimes it's necessary, but, you know, I would much rather like have them, you know, sack their Gideon with Blessed Alliance rather than giving them an extra land. So that comes up a decent amount, but it's a very versatile card, and it works really great against stuff like Boggles as well, because Boggles, okay, we'll take a little break here, but we'll use the word should very sparingly, but Boggles should board out ley lines against you because you just don't really have anything that targets them. I mean, maybe Settle, but like, you know, I don't know. There's nothing, you know. You have Saddle and Gideon, and it's just a waste of a slot. They have better things to be doing. They should be boarding out their ley lines, which makes Alliance better. But sometimes they don't, and they get you, and there's not a lot you can do about that. Anyways, Wrath of God against the regeneration creatures, things like Azuri, Thrun, and it's also just another, you know, your 4th copy of board wipe effect against the aggressive decks in the format. Timely Reinforcements, again, against aggro, burn. It's really great against burn, and it's actually surprisingly good against something like Jeskai, because they're trying to burn you out. They're trying to, like, just, you know, Lightning Helix 2 end of turn, Snap Bolt you, you know, kind of thing. And if you can get it to the point where they have like a click and play or something like that, sometimes just gain 6, make 3 dudes against control is pretty good, because it, attacks through their Snapcaster mages or whatever, and just gain 6, like, if they're on that plan. So it's not great, and I don't board it in often, but like if I feel like my opponent is on like a burn heavier build type thing, sometimes I'll do that. Then we have Rune Halo, which is great against Grixis Death Shadow. It's great against like Hollow One and crap like that. It's really just great against anything. It's really good against Scape Shift. You just name Valakut, and if they don't have Nature's Claims, they just lose. Great against things like Ad Nauseam, because you can name like Lightning Storm. Granted, they can still kill you with what's it called? They can still kill you with Lab Maniac. But just, I mean, it's just a great card. It's a great versatile card. It just gives you protection from a lot of things that you need to have protection from. Name Tarmogoyf against Jund, like, after they've played a couple, and, stuff like that. Name Eidolon against Burn. Name Riftbolt after it's been suspended against Burn. Stuff like that. So it's just a really great card. Then we've got a Celestial Purge. I like having this because there is Blood Moon everywhere. Those people who play Blue-White who say that Blood Moon does not really affect you are just lying to you, because it does a lot of damage. Sure, I mean, we have 8 basics, but I mean, you want to be able to cast all your spells. Casting Cryptic Command even with 8 basics is still hard. And Celestial Colonnade is like one of your win conditions, and Field of Ruin is like another, just powerful card. Plus, against stuff like Ponza, where they're just like, herp-a-derp, turn 2 Blood Moon, sometimes you just don't have the opportunity to even fetch up, like, all your basics and stuff. So being able to just, like, play Colonnade on turn 1, and then they're like Arbor Elf, and you're just like, oh crap. Then you can just go like Flooded Strand. If they play Blood Moon, you just crack it for Flames, and then play Celestial Purge on it, whatever. Also great against Liliana of the Veil and like Blood Red Elf decks and Burn and stuff like that too, just to kill a guy. So even against Burn, it's just 2 mana, like kill your Goblin guy or whatever. So it's good. Then we got 2 Rest in Peace against Graveyard Shenanigans. Pretty good that it doesn't really affect our deck because we only really have like the 2 Snapcaster mages. Usually what you do against those decks is you board out Snapcaster and you board out Logic Knots to kind of hammer that home, and depends on the matchup. But it's really great against Hollow One and Grixis Death Shadow and any Dredge Shenanigans, stuff like that. Then we've got the Counter Magic Suite here. We've got 2 extra negates. These come in against non-creature spells. So basically anything, Tron, Control, Combo, whatever, Same thing with Dispel, which did not go over there. Okay. Dispel comes in against, Control, Ad Nauseam, Combo, just whatever you need it to come in against. And then Disdainful Stroke is pretty good against Control. Counter their Jace for 2 mana, counter their Cryptic Command for 2 mana is pretty good. Yes, Negate does the same thing, but Disdainful Stroke is also great against Tron. Counter your, Ulamog, counter your World Breaker, counter, Karn. Again, yes, Negate does also counter Karn and whatever else, but Disdainful Stroke can hit Wormcoil Engine, crap like that, and it's just a good card. It's just an extra counter against stuff like that. It's good against like Scapeshift, for example, because it can counter both Titan and Scapeshift. So there you go. Then we have 3 Geist of Saint Traft, and this is my personal spin. A lot of people play like Vendilion Click in this slot, like 2 Vendilion Click and like an extra Dispel or whatever. I like Geist of Saint Traft. My win percentage against decks that want to try to kill you by doing unfair things have gone. My win percentage against those decks have gone up since I've been starting to play more Geist in the sideboard. Now, Benny Hill's original version had like 1 Geist, 1 Click, and like whatever in the sideboard, and it was like kind of like a mini package deal. So like you would like have your Gideons and like 1 Geist, 1 Click, like to fight against like Storm and crap like that to put a clock on them. But I just like to be more mainstream. I'm just like, all right, we're going 3 Geists, not looking back. I like Click and everything. I mean, Click is good, but it's I don't think it's as good as people like think it is. Like, it's not Thoughtseize, okay? Like, you're taking a good card, sure, and like you're getting a look at their hand, sure. Those are both good, but you're also you're putting a 3-1 on the board, which is also good or whatever. But you know, it's turning on like their removal spells. I mean, I don't know. I like Click. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great card. It's just it's not you're not thought seizing them. You're not searing them or whatever. You know, so there's a very realistic chance that you take a good card out of their hand and they draw something equally good or better or the same card. You know what I mean? So whatever. Like I don't like to mess around. I don't like to just put like a 3/1 on the board because that's also vulnerable. Like sure, you can play it against Storm and take their Past in Flames or their Gifts Ungiven, and then it's just like, okay, well now what? If they don't bolt it right away, then you're just like, okay, I'll attack you for 3. Okay, sure. You know, then they're just like, oh, alright, well, I just drew another Gifts, or I drew pieces of the puzzle. I'm just gonna kill you anyways. Nice 3/1. So, Geist puts on a harder clock, and it's much, much harder to kill against the decks where it matters. I had a green-red Tron opponent boarding in Pyroclasm because he got stomped so hard by Geist. So after I killed him in the 3rd game, I lost game 1. I beat him game 2 with Geist. He boarded in a bunch of Pyroclasms. In game 3, I just played normal. Just seize your thing, negate your map, whatever. I don't remember the contents of the game. But I just played a Jace. Just like, alright, well, you know, you have one Tron land that's not an island or blown up by Field of Ruin. I'm just gonna play Jason Mind Sculptor. Play Jason Mind Sculptor, just started base sealing him. Exiled his entire library, and he conceded in response, and he revealed his hand, and he had 3 Pyroclasms in his hand. So, I mean, not saying that that's going to happen every time, but, you know, people are trying hard to fight Geist. You know, I've countered an Oblivion Stone, for example, because, like, I wanted my Geist to survive because they're going to kill him. But it's a huge clock, you know, impossible to really kill. It's great against control decks. The Angel can kill Jace with the Mind Sculptor by itself. So like if your opponent tries to play Jace, they can't like unsummon it. They have to have like a board wipe or something. And yeah, I mean it's just a solid card. It's really great. And having 3 copies just ensures that you're going to draw it more when it's, you know, as close to a haymaker as can be against decks where you want to put pressure on. One of the most common problems that I find with people saying like, you know, oh, I'm going to beat Storm, I'm just going to bring in this Ruined Halo naming Grape Shot, and then I'm going to board in this Rest in Peace. And then they're like, you know, alright, well, play Ruined Halo naming Grape Shot, play my Rest in Peace, exile your graveyard, path your Brawl, and then they're just like, okay, untap, you know, play my 4th land, 5th land, whatever, play Electromancer, spell, empty the Warrens, and then you're just like sitting there with your Rest in Peace and your Ruined Halo on Grape Shot and like maybe some counter magic in hand or, you know, a Jace or whatever, and you're just like, well, okay, I've got a Click in my hand, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, there's just, you need to be able to turn the corner. That's why a lot of blue-white decks have started to play stuff like Ojutai, because it's a 5-power beater. You know, that's still vulnerable unless you have the Minamu. I think Minamo's school, the untapped target legendary thing on the jig, whatever. This one, Minamu, yeah. So, yeah. So I mean, you have like Ojutai, you know, or whatever to attack people. We've got our Geists. Yeah, Geist. This is a bad list. Don't play this list. We should have like kitchen things in it and stuff. Anyways, so back to this. Yeah. So Geist, I just like to be able to turn the corner. I like to be able to play it after I've, you know, like against Tron, like if I'm just like, you know, okay, turn 1, whatever, turn 2, Spreading Seas your thing, you know, and then like tier 3 Geist, like where it's like impossible for them to have Tron online, and then untap, play my 4th land, have access to Cryptic, Negate, Mana Leak, extra Spreading Seas, Field of Ruin, and just smash for 6 every turn. Bang, 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 you're just dead, you know. And then like against Storm, you know, you do the same thing. Just like stop what they're doing initially, and then just put a pressure on them. Don't sit around until you hit land 10 and then try to play like Jace with like Cryptic Negate up or whatever. They will find ways to kill you. You know, you have to put a clock on them. You have to clock Scape Shift, Ad Nauseam, etc. You have to be able to kill them quickly, because Modern is an unforgiving format. There's so many draws that they can have that just oust you. And yeah, sure, you can try to dig for countering everything, but you know, sometimes you're not going to have a Cryptic command for every single spell that they're going to play. You know, sure, games end up like that sometimes, but I don't like to putz around. I like to just kill them dead, move along to the next match. And then anyways, to round out the sideboard, we have a Crucible of Worlds, and that pairs with that main deck Ghost Quarter that we talked about earlier. Along with Field of Ruin, just being able to like reduce them to mono basics is really good. But then you just get to, you know, eventually you'll find a Ghost Quarter, and you'll just quarter them to death. You'll just actually turn this into Strip Mine and just kill all of their lands. And that's against grindy matchups. That's what you would bring in against like Control, the Mirror, Jeskai, Esper, Blue-Black, just to shut off their lands. It's also good against grindy matchups like Eldrazi Tron and Normal Tron, because then you just get to rebuy your Field of Ruin and just shut them off from Tron lands. You know, the thing with Tron is that they can still cast their spells. So like, yes, like you may Spreading Seas and Ghost Quarter all their crap, but they can still just like play land 7 and cast a World Breaker, cast a Karn, cast whatever. So you need to be prepared for stuff like that, like if you do end up playing the long game. And it's also decent against stuff like Panza. I was going to play like Sacred Ground, but that's way too narrow. But against stuff like Panza, you can, you know, at least kind of try to get a little bit of reprieve from Stone Rains and stuff like that. It's not great, but I mean, it's better than whatever. A friend of mine said that it's probably positive EV that if your opponent goes Forest Arbor Elf, you should just concede the match immediately and save yourself the time. I mean, I'm almost inclined to agree with him, but it's close. But anyways, yeah, so you bring in Crucible against other grindy decks, you know, any deck with blue in it usually, and it's halfway decent against stuff like Jund, because you just get to go long and just crush their lands and prevent them from casting Bloodbraid Elves and, you know, everything else. But that kind of depends. It's not great. But anyways, we're gonna slam into a queue, and hopefully we're gonna get a 5-0, and that'll be that. So thanks for bearing with me on this long deck tech, and we'll see you back for round 1.